This is the Mack G Show.
Welcome to episode 24 of the Mack G Show. Before we jump in, and we do want to jump in a hurry because I'm so excited for the guest that we have today, please don't forget to follow the Mack G Show on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe, hit the bell. We're also on major streaming platforms, so if you're listening to this somewhere, you probably should be able to catch this. And if you have no idea what those links are, we have them in the show notes.
Give us some comments, feedback.
There you go. All right. That out of the way, I would like to read this bio and then get to our guest.
Hit it.
All right. Our guest today has spent a lifetime in New England sports. As a player, reporter, and voice behind the scenes, he played football and baseball at Everett High, captained the BU baseball team, wrote for the Boston Herald, and has been covering the Patriots since the Pete Carroll era. He's now the editor of Patriots.com and a co-host on Patriots Unfiltered. Please welcome to the Mack G Show, Paul Perillo.
Wow. I'm all teary-eyed.
Wow.
There you go. We did that. Paul, thanks for coming on.
Do you have that on
thanks for having
Unfiltered?
me.
Is that on Unfiltered?
Yeah, I gotta work that in. You know what we do on Unfiltered? Anytime like Belichick used to like use our names when he answered the questions, we would make them play those clips. Play the drop. That's a really
Before he like grunted like.
that's a really good question, Paul.
Yeah. So, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I don't want to bore people up front, but one of the things where I thought the planets were aligning, and I think that one of the triggers for you to come on the show is it was around the holidays. You were filling in for someone on one of the sports radio channels talking about childhood memories of Christmas.
Yeah.
And you commented that you and your brother found a Mattel Electronics game and played like a couple weeks before Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Right?
We were sick of them by the time Christmas came.
Absolutely. But you had to fake it to your parents that you still enjoyed it, right?
Yep.
So, and they were like, well, how are there batteries in this? Right? Like your parents were probably like, but literally a week before.
We weren't amateurs. We took the batteries back out.
Smart move.
Yeah.
But literally, I did the same thing. And a week before on this very show, I said the same story. So I'm like, you know what? This has got to be a sign.
Was that the game where it was just a red line and it was like
Mine-
up, down,
yeah,
down? And
Little diodes like blips.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Well, the first one was the football one. I got like the second basketball one, which had like 3-point shots.
Oh, I don't think I
geez.
had that one.
Oh, it was good.
I just remember
I
the
mean, it would
football one.
bore
It was
the
just-
living crap out of you now.
I had
but-
them all. Football,
Yeah.
baseball,
Yeah.
basketball. I think there was an auto racing. Auto racing is one that we actually ripped the box when we opened it a little bit.
How do you fix that?
And my brother and I just panicked, so we put it back in. We're like, really nervous about it. And then like, a couple of days later, my brother, who was older than me, he should have known better. And he's like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll just open it when we open it. We'll just do it like really
Wow,
violently,
that's smart,
and we'll be
yeah.
like, So like, they even if they see it, they probably won't see it. But if they do, we'll just I just did that.
Did you ever come clean with your parents? Did
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh
good.
yeah. This is good holiday talk fodder. Now.
Sure. Yeah, we got a ways for
That's
that.
smart though. So just rip it where it was ripped and you're like, woohoo.
So again, I felt like that might have been the universe saying, you know what, reach out to Paul. And then I, got your email address and you were kind enough to say, you know what, when the dust settles after the holidays. So thank you so much for coming on. Lots to talk about. I think, why don't we start where it all began, Everett. So what are your earliest memories of growing up in Everett?
Yeah, it was a great place to live. Really small town. It was a city feel, but because it's so it's only like 2 square miles. Everybody seemed to know everybody. A lot of generations in Everett. I was one of them with the typical Italian household. My grandparents lived in the same house, so there was 7 of us in the house, and it just was a really fun place to play. There was a park on every corner. Back in those days, you were running errands all the time for your parents. Go and get 2 half-gallons of milk and a pack of whatever they were smoking at the time.
Of course they were.
Yeah. And I always say, like, people look at me now because I'm the old dinosaur now at the Patriots, and they're all a bunch of young kids and like, your mother sent you to the store to get cigarettes? It was a different time. It was a different time. So it was a really fun place to play. Everybody knew everybody, and it was all about sports.
So
I would say Everett, it was all about sports. There's a great sports community.
For sure. Now, what's interesting is that obviously you played youth sports. There were other places you could have gone to, right? Catholic conference or whatever. And you said, I want to stick with Everett High, right?
Yeah, Pope John there, right?
Yeah,
Pope
John and Malden Catholic were really close, and I had friends that went to both.
Yep.
And I never really gave it a whole lot of thought, and I don't really know how to explain this without sounding really arrogant. And I don't believe me. I don't mean this to be arrogant at all. It was academic for me. And the reason that a lot of people chose to go to Pope John or Malden Catholic were academics. But I was in a program starting in the 4th grade. It was called ATC.
I was in that.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're a geek like me.
Grew up in Revere.
Okay.
We got
academically talented class.
children.
Yeah.
But Paul, he went to Dom Savio, so he didn't stick with Revere.
So, but we were bused into a different school from our school to a different school.
But so he can relate. So
Yes.
I have a lot of people that
awesome.
Savio was in that same kind of realm. Some people went there. Christopher Columbus, if you go back that far. But I was in this program, and I had two really good friends they went parochial, like all the way. They went to Immaculate Conception Elementary School, middle school, and then they went to Pope John, and they were a year ahead of me. And I remember, like being like 12, 13, 14, was sitting down, like, you got to get your homework done, and they're doing all stuff that I had done the year before.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like, again, I don't mean this to sound arrogant because by no means am I, splitting.
Did your brother do that?
I'm not splitting any atoms. No, my brother did the same thing. He was in the same class.
Okay.
Did you have to? They
we
took
were a
us
year
out
ahead.
of our school and took us to another school.
So they did.
Like-
in Everett, that's exactly what they did. So all the kids from around the city all went to the center school. It's a small school, so it was very easy. A small city, so you went to the Lafayette school or you went to the Hale school. Everybody went to the center school.
Got it.
For ATC, and I affectionately call them my geek classes now. But
I mean,
some of those people that I went to school with are still like they're some of my very best friends.
Are still there, but that's just school, right? There's no sports with that. You're going back to your
But when it came time to decide about high school, my brother, had taken the tests for Malden Catholic and Pope John, and he was accepted into both, and he decided he just wanted to go to Everett High and stay with his friends and whatnot. And for me, it was never. I never even took the tests. I didn't even try. I just went to Everett High and I did those programs. Now, in retrospect, could I have maybe gotten more opportunities academic?
I think you did okay.
Of course,
so I think it worked.
Of course, but it was a good experience for me. It's a big school, but not overwhelming. I mean, you went to St. John's Prep.
Yeah.
Everett would be dwarfed by St. John's Prep. At that time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different school than when I went now, right? Yeah. Like you didn't need $30,000 to go there when I went.
That's a different argument.
Yeah. There was a better cross section, I think, when I went than there is now. But so you mentioned sports town, obviously, not only the town, but for your family, you were into sports, and sports was important to you. So you just, as early as you could, you were playing baseball, playing football.
And that was just hanging on my brother's coattails all the time. He was 4 years older than me, and I grew up like everybody else at that age. If you're 4 years younger than your sibling, what did you do your whole childhood? You went to his games.
Right.
And he played everything, and I couldn't wait to play everything with him. And the thing about sports that I lament now that's different, because we're all similar ages. We all had similar probably experiences growing up. We played Little League Baseball. We played Pop Warner football, but
the specialization now.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that was like 2 hours that day. The other 10 hours that we spent down Everett Stadium playing, 6-on-6 baseball games, stickball games, street hockey in the post office parking lot. Those are some of the greatest sports memories that I have.
Yeah,
some of these games, the center school that I mentioned before had, a great basketball court. So we could play whatever the season was, we played.
Right.
And I can't tell you the last time I drove by a park in Peabody that had anybody in it playing that wasn't an organized game. And that's a shame.
Yeah, that is sad.
That's not like that anymore.
That is sad.
That's how I learned how to play. And I would play with my older brother, and he would be like, fine. He wasn't one of those older brothers like, no, you're not playing with me. But he said, if you want to play with us, you have to keep up.
And that's
actually good for you.
And that was
older.
But that was a 4-year difference. So I was like 8 years old, just starting to play in the minors in youth league. And they're 12 and 13, starting to play on the big diamond in baseball. If I wanted, they would stick me in the outfield, but if they hit the ball to me, I had to catch it, or I wasn't. You can't just play if you can't catch the ball. So that's how I learned how to play.
Did you ever? There was a YouTube video. I think University of Minnesota. I think head hockey coach. There was some award ceremony, and he got up and he, speaking of what you said, which is. he was talking about when we were kids, we would go to the, go to the ice just as us buddies, and we would play over and over, and we would try things. And if we screwed up, it didn't matter. It was just us kids.
Yeah.
That's
called practice.
No, I'll share it with this because it was a wonderful story
Yeah.
that you just pointed out, which is it's not that way anymore. And the pressure of these kids, they can't make a mistake. They can't try something, on their own.
Those kids now are on treadmills with ice. They have harnesses on them, skating with pucks.
But it's so true. And I coached my kids in Little League Baseball, and I can't tell you how many times these poor kids, they get up to bat and they're like 9 years old and they're squeezing the bat so tight and you can see the tension in their faces and they strike out. Well, I got to strike out, but no one was watching.
Right. So
and then maybe the next time I got up again, I struck out again. But it was just my brother and my friends and my brother's friends. And, that's all right. You'll get it, next week when we play, you're going to hit it.
So you had good support then? Because it sounds like you had a good support system.
Listen, my brother was like any other older brother. He did his share of ball busting. But, he was more than happy
cool, though.
to sort of, guide me along. And, I had great, we go back to whatever it was like. I know everybody thinks their parents are the best, but they're wrong. Mine are. So, my mother and father ran Pop Warner football.
Wow. Oh, wow.
They ran the Everett Huskies. My father was the president and my mother ran the cheerleading. And my father ultimately became the New England regional director for Pop Warner football for about 40 years. He just recently stepped down. He's, in his mid 80s.
Wow.
So, that's the kind of support system.
Yeah.
To speak to what you're talking
my
about.
mom ran the cheerleading for Revere Pop Warner for years.
Okay.
Same thing.
Yeah,
So-
my parents didn't run anything.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, there
Is
were.
your mom still with us?
Yeah, she's
So,
81
I'll
years
guarantee
old.
you she knows Ginger Perillo. I'll guarantee.
I'll
You
ask
gotta
her
ask
for
her.
sure. Yeah, but she.
My mother's got a large personality, so there's no way that the revered cheerleading director doesn't know who my mother is.
So it sounds like you settled on kind of baseball, football as probably the two chief sports. Obviously, I don't want to get too far ahead of it, but we know what happened in college. Do you think that baseball was your favorite sport?
Yeah, baseball
Okay.
was always my favorite. I liked football. I liked watching football, and I liked playing it. I wasn't all that good. I was kind of small. The size problems in football were more pronounced than they were in baseball.
And were you a pitcher in baseball?
I was. I
Okay.
was a pitcher and an outfielder.
Okay.
But, I'm lefty, so I was kind of limited. But yeah, baseball, I always felt like at a very early age, I could put the bat on the ball.
Got
And
it.
that sort of got you ahead of a lot. When you're 8 and 9 years old and you're already hitting the ball, a lot of the kids couldn't.
Right.
So that was confidence for me. Football, I played football 7 years of Pop Warner, and that was okay. I was a pretty good player in the teams, but I didn't really have like a niche. I wasn't overly athletic. I'm not fast. And I wasn't, as we got older, I wasn't strong. So that's a bad combination in football.
Yeah.
Was Everett as good as
No.
they are? Like when we
Short
were
answer,
younger?
no.
Okay.
Oh,
all right, 'cause
really?
'cause
They weren't.
They were really good for years and
Yeah.
years.
So this is, I did the self-deprecating part, which there'll be a lot of that today. Everett High was like the premier program in the state from like literally like the early part of the 1900s all the way to like 1975. They won like 8,000 Greater Boston League titles and Suburban League titles, and they even won a mythical national championship.
Okay.
Way back in like 1912 or something. I don't know. And then they had a legendary coach all that time, and he sort of lost his fastball. He retired, I want to say in 83, but by that time they were not very good. My first year that I played, my sophomore year, I played for Everett High. We had a new coach who was great, Andy Garino. I learned a hell of a lot from him. You know Andy?
My
His
last
last
name.
name.
Oh, okay. I was like, Jesus, you guys know everybody that I know. So he was a great coach, and I learned a lot from him. One of his top assistants, Barry Rosen. Every once in a while, he chimes in when he hears me on the radio now, and he's probably in his 80s too.
Wow.
So I learned a lot from those guys. We went 2-8. No, 3-7 my sophomore year, 2-8 my junior year with a different coach.
Oh.
James Agnetta, because the whole thing was sort of a setup in Everett. Everett gets a little political. And the legendary coach was Moody Sarno, who was actually one of the original 7 blocks of granite at Fordham. So storied football background. when he left, they kind of forced him out, and one of his players didn't want to replace him. Sort of, they didn't want to have it be one of his assistants take it over.
Right.
So they brought in this Andy Garino for like a buffer, and no one knew it. And it
Like the Gerard Bayo effect.
Correct. And it kind of blindsided us all. So James Agnetta took over Tank, and I love Tank too. I still do some things with the Everett E Club today, so I see him every once in a while. And he's been very supportive of my career, and doing. So
when did it come back around again?
So I want to say 3-7, 2-8. Senior year we went 5-5. It was like cause for celebration. So I would fast forward. That would be 85, senior year of football. I want to say 91. John DiBiase took over.
There you go.
He went from that immediately to like 7-3 his first year. Then the second year they won it, and they just won Super Bowl after Super Bowl. I played basketball for Dib.
Okay.
A little bit like youth basketball growing up before he was a high school coach.
So he's an Everett guy.
He's an Everett guy through and through.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, his dad was the athletic director at the time.
Got it.
Mr. DiBiase. I don't call him.
They had was it like Omar Easy? Remember Omar Easy? Like they had professionals come right through there. And,
play in the
NFL.
Like right now, and it's not even back in the day. There are 5 NFL players that played on the same team at Everett High. Right
really?
now, yeah.
Well, the tight end, right, for the Ravens.
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Lewis Seen. Oh my, I'm not going to be able to name them all.
That's phenomenal, though. That's crazy.
Mike Sanderstill, who was a rookie with the Commanders last year, 2nd round pick. And they're going to have another kid coming out of Michigan this year. Josiah Stewart was on
That's incredible.
on that team too, and he's probably going to be like a day 2 pick.
Wow,
that's incredible.
But Dib left.
But he
left. He went to Catholic Memorial.
CM. Right,
so Everett has fallen off again. It just shows you just how important coaching is.
Are they Division 2 or 1?
Catholic Memorial?
Yeah.
There still are 2, right? Which is wrong, right? Because they're the best team.
But they don't play like St. John's Prep.
They do.
They do. They play them in the regular season, but not in the playoffs.
But not in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a lot smaller.
Okay.
Catholic Memorial, they're a lot smaller enrollment-wise than the others. But I agree, he should find a way to play.
Why wouldn't you?
I think by rule, he plays up as far as he can, but I think they should play in Division 1.
So we talked about sports. Clearly, there's another aspect to you that what you're doing now. So I think you mentioned something about the Jim Thistle story. Yeah. Because that seemed to be a key moment in your life.
So that's back to the center school.
Yeah.
That was like a 6th grade career day. And Jim Thistle is an Everett guy who at the time was the news director at Channel 5.
Oh, wow.
And he came and spoke at a career day. And, it's one of those deals where, kids get to pick the different things and you go to the different classrooms and learn about stuff. And my dad was an accountant. So I went to like the CPA guy and I was bored to tears. And I ended up with going to Mr. Thistle's presentation. I was like, wow, that sounds really cool because, I was like 12 at the time, 12 or 13, but you kind of get an idea. Like, I don't think I'm as fast as the other kids that are my age. I don't think I'm going pro. I don't think this is going to work out for me. My goal was to be Fred Lynn.
Yeah.
But I kind of figured out this probably isn't going to happen. And I was like, how can you sort of marry the two, sports and writing? I'm
Did you appreciate writing at that point in your life? Okay, you did.
I had some teachers that had said, have you passed in that story yet? I always like to read your stories. So I was like, I don't know.
Did you read the paper then? Like, did you read sports?
Just the sports.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
Yeah.
But you always read too. I know. Well, I'm just going to say, because the paper was big then. You read.
I still read the actual physical paper today. I get made fun of for it every day.
Yeah, because we do have a question later on about the whole enter digital and what impact that.
Yeah.
That
so
had.
Just to wrap up that story, it really resonated with me. The presentation that he made, I kind of thought at that early age that a career in the media of some sort would make some sense. Fast forward 4 years, I get to high school and, they needed someone to write the stories in the local paper for the sports. So I did all the stories for football, basketball, and baseball. Oh. And I was playing on the football and the baseball teams at the time.
Did you ever write in what an incredible play?
No, I always, in general terms, I went out of my way to keep myself out of the story unless I did something wrong.
Oh,
because I didn't want anybody to think, oh,
Right.
sure.
right.
You know, and it was so funny because most people, again, Everett, tiny community. Most people knew that I was writing it, but I would not put my byline on it if my name appeared. I would say, hey, no byline this week. You know, like everybody knew who wrote it, you know, but
So
you know,
that's-
I gave up like 4 runs in an inning at North Quincy my senior year. And I was like, and Paul Perillo came in and the game got out of hand.
So we hinted a little bit about kind of your memory when it comes to sports. And I believe that your grandfather...
That would be an example of it because that's exactly what happened.
right. So I think you said your grandfather gave you a unique nickname. What was that nickname? And clearly you're proving it right now, right?
Univac. He used to joke around that I was like a Univac, and I didn't even know what that was. I guess it was like a newfangled like IBM computer or something that probably at the time was really high tech. And he just said like he never saw anybody that just rattled off stats. I could tell you, Jim Reiss was like 46 home runs, 139 RBIs in 1978, 406 total bases. These are things that just when I was 10, they rattled off my head. You know, the 78,
and you still have it in there
the
today?
78 Red Sox were just like a special team for me. I felt like I watched every game, every inning, and yeah, I knew all his stats. We used to play wiffle ball, and I'm sure you guys did the same thing. You had to get up righty or lefty depending on who was up, and you had to imitate the batting stance. You know, like you'd
How'd you do Euclid? How'd you do Euclid?
Well, that was
I was too old for that. I'm talking, it was Remy, Burleson, Lynn, Rice, Yaz, Evans, Fisk, Hobson.
Johnny,
Yaz, I think, still lives in Boxford, I think.
I believe he died. I think
Johnny,
that's
in the country.
That's right. Yeah.
Give me a Jim Rice.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Do your Jim Rice. Come on.
Baseball's baseball. You hit the ball.
See it? You guys see it?
You run to first. You run to second. If you're lucky, you go to third. Then you come home. That's baseball.
You get a pitch you can drive. You see it and drive it. See it and drive it.
You're both of you.
That's what he is. It's a happy guy.
That was one of my childhood memories too. Remember the old Star Market home run sweepstakes?
Yeah.
It was Butch Hobson, Jim Rice home run sweepstakes. I won one of those, and I met Jim Rice. And,
oh wow.
Yeah, he was my favorite player ever since. Not surprising, Butch Hobson was late.
Yeah.
He was probably doing lines.
Yeah, exactly. Well, remember, James was talking about it too. So we had a guy on who played semi-pro baseball, and at some point, Butch was his coach. And he said, there's a lot of stories I can't tell you.
Yeah, so, I didn't have much of the interaction. Rice was great, though, with the kids. And it was funny because he had such a reputation for being so surly with the media.
Right.
And, he was difficult and didn't get along with anybody, but he was great for the kids.
Nicest
guy.
Great
for me, anyway.
Yeah, nicest guy. So you wrote for the local paper in high school. That was it? Or did you start to tease some of the bigger papers then? That was in college?
No, that was high school. I did that, the high school stuff. And then I went to BU, and my plan at BU was to write for their paper, the Daily Free Press, and maybe see if I could get, I went and toured the radio studio. I was looking into some of those opportunities. But, all smart 18-year-olds, I went and said, I'll try out for the baseball team, because it's Division I, but in name only. We had no scholarships. We had no home field. We played against a lot of Division I teams, and I got to play against a lot of future Major League Baseball players. But this was like trying out for a good high school team. This was not major college baseball by any means.
Really? It wasn't then?
No.
Oh.
So I decided to try out. There was about 120 kids that tried out.
That's
and
a lot.
I ended up making it.
Wow.
So I said, well, I'm going to play baseball. I don't need to write for the school paper. I don't need to go and get experience in the radio studio. Why am I going to do any of that stuff? So I ended up playing 4 years of baseball. Had a lot of fun doing that. I don't regret it. But it probably did cost me some work experience that I could have used.
You caught up with that, obviously.
I got lucky. I ended up getting an internship, my junior year at the Herald in the sports department, and that's how I caught on.
How much time was that for you? Like you're trying to balance like a sport, college, and then that. Was it a lot?
Yeah, when you don't open any of the books, you have a little bit more time. The baseball is really time consuming if you're going to commit. Now, I was a pitcher, so I actually made that when I tried out for the team. I made it as an outfielder.
Okay.
And when we went down to Florida, I was probably like the 5th outfielder. I wasn't wasn't knocking on the door of playing time or anything. But, we had some games that, you win big or lose big, and they're throwing all the freshmen out there. And I got a chance to play a little. And then we came back up north. This was my freshman year. We came back up north. We played Bryant. It's probably a day not unlike today when it's like 40 degrees raw.
Snowing.
And our pitcher goes out and walks like, 6 guys in a row to start the game. And
Perillo, get on the mound.
Well, it's just like I happened to make an off-the-cuff comment to the senior captain who is the DH. I'm sitting next to him. I'm like charting pitches and stuff, just trying to be a, teammate. And I go, Jesus, I could do better than that. And he whips his head around and he goes, you have a pitch? I said, I pitched a little in high school, but like I'm lefty, but I don't throw very hard.
Wait, so they never knew that you
were... No, I was an outfielder. I tried out for BU as an outfielder.
Wow.
I probably... My senior year in high school, if I was cracking 80, I'd be surprised.
So you're throwing junk? You're throwing good movement, deception?
I had all off-speed stuff. So I was like, I can't pitch in college with this repertoire. I'll get killed. And I just looked at him. I said, listen, I pitched. I'll throw strikes. I can throw strikes all day. I'm going to get hit. If we can catch the ball, I'll be all right. But
they put you in that game?
I'll give it a try. No.
Okay.
But he told the coach, and the coach ended up coming to me after that game and said, I'm going to have you at practice tomorrow. I'm going to have you throw off the mound, and we'll see. And I threw for about 15 minutes for him, and he said, I'm going to see if I can get you in a game, and we'll see what happens,
That is great.
So like the week later, we go down to Yale. Now, do you know where the Natural was filmed?
Was that at Yale?
That's that stadium that we played in.
Okay.
That day. Yeah, it's beautiful setting.
Don't go too far away from there though at Yale, right? It's not New Haven.
No, you got to be careful there. So I went down. We're getting killed. And he says, "Hey, why don't you go warm up?" So I go down to warm up, and I'm thinking he's not gonna put me in the game, whatever. So he did, and this is this is one of the few ones of these sports stories that I'm going to tell you that I actually I can actually make myself
it's
look
okay
good.
for you to do that.
Okay. So I struck the first guy out on 3 pitches.
Ooh.
Struck the second guy out on 3 pitches. And the next guy hit the first pitch on a ground to third. So 7 pitches, 7 strikes, 1, 2, 3. And
that's pretty good in the book.
I walked off the mound and the coach looks at the catcher. He goes, "What's he throwing?" And the catcher goes, "All fastballs." Because my fastball it moved. Like I was lefty and it would tail. Now, over the course of, so I became a pitcher. From that point on, I was a pitcher. And I had some success. And so I probably threw, say, 30 innings a year, 30, 35, 40 innings a year for BU. And then my manager at BU was also a manager in the Boston Park League.
Okay.
So all summer, they play. We played 4 nights a week, Cleveland Circle, Kelly Field, and Hyde Park, all over Boston. So I probably pitched another 50 or so innings in that. So now I'm pitching, over 100 innings a year. So I got a lot of strength that I didn't have from not really committing to being a pitcher. Did you get any speed
on the pitch too over time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But one
Did you
of
get
the
to 90?
Not 90, but I was touching maybe like 86, 87, which is junk. That's junk ball.
Unless you had the movement, maybe.
Right, but I had good location and I was able to be, somewhat deceptive. I had a decent curveball and I had, the ability to sort of throw a strike
when you needed it.
Yeah, when I needed it. And, I remember my brother going to a game in the Park League, so he had heard like I'm pitching for BU, but he's working, so he can't go to all those games. So my father and grandfather would go to every game. Like the grandfather that dubbed me Univac would go to every game. And he'd be up there smoking his cigar. And my brother, came to one of the games with him. And like first inning comes by and I have a good first inning and I walk off. And they told me, my father and grandfather was like, yeah, Rich looked at us and he said, when did he start throwing hard? So yeah, I pitched a lot, and the velocity came.
I think also important is were you captain for 2 years, your junior and senior year? That's pretty impressive too, right?
And it was 2 other juniors that was Mario Ferrante, Dave Cunningham, 2 of my best friends even to this day. The 3 of us were 2-year captains, and it's like I said, it was a tough program. Like we didn't win a lot of games. When we were able to beat Division I teams, those were big deals for us. And we had a handful of them. We went down to Florida, beat LaSalle. We would play against University of Miami, as an example, and get crushed. But we come back up top. We beat Dartmouth. We beat Harvard. We beat Northeastern one year.
But that's
we beat
even
Boston College.
That's more impressive as
That's
a
cool.
captain,
You're
right?
playing D1.
Yeah.
No, but if you're on a powerhouse and you're a captain, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with that,
it was
right?
fun. Like I said, I mean, I could look back at it now, and I would probably smack my son if he said, "Well, I'm going to play like club basketball instead of going to do an internship somewhere that I can get world experience." But that's basically what I chose to do.
Right.
The
price tag's a little bit higher though for our kids nowadays, right?
Yeah, that is true.
One last question before we get into. Actually, we probably want to get in a little more detail, like if you have memorable games there, right? But was it always going to be BU? Was there any other schools that were in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be journalism, and sat with my guidance counselor at Everett High, who was also a baseball coach. Now I had him as my baseball coach my freshman year, and he retired.
Okay.
But so I had a decent relationship with him, Ralph Cesare. Funny story, his son was one of the assistant football coaches at Fenwick now. So he coached my two kids.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I sat with him, and he said, if you want to go away to school, Northwestern, Missouri, Syracuse, obviously, for journalism.
Yep.
If you want to stay local, it's BU. BU's the way to go. Now, my whole family, I come from a family of Northeastern people.
Okay.
My father went to Northeastern. My brother went to Northeastern. My sister followed me after me, and she went to Northeastern. And I've been a season ticket holder for hockey and basketball games since like 1980.
So you cheated on Northeastern.
I was the black sheep. But he just told me this in such a way, like, and locally, literally gave me half dozen examples if I want to travel. If I want to go away to school, which I wasn't ready for because I was a mama's boy.
And then the whole community thing you were talking about, like all that.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. And I wanted to stay local. And he said, then BU.
That's it.
Not like BU and
But that was good advice,
or
right?
Northeastern. Like Tony Massarotti, who I've worked with forever, went to Tufts.
But I don't think that was known as a journalism school. I mean, obviously,
Andy Hart too, right?
He went
from
there too?
WIU. He's another Tufts guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow. So,
but anyway, so that's why it was BU. It wasn't because like the school spoke to me or anything like that. It was like, well, that's where you go.
That was the advice.
If I want to stay local for journal. Now, I loved my time at BU. The 4 years, I wouldn't trade it. I really enjoyed it. And I think I did get a good background in journalism from the College of Communications there and a couple of professors that I really...
Were you a hockey fan when you were there? That was a smart time to be a hockey fan at BU.
A Northeastern hockey fan.
You still were?
Oh, yeah. I went there with an open mind. I was like, I'll probably start rooting for BU. I hated BU. I hated BU and BC.
That doesn't work out in the bean pot.
No, so here's it. My wife went to Northeastern. And her father and her older siblings all went to BU. My father-in-law was a huge BU guy. He was also the president of the Harvard Coop back in the day, like 80s, 90s. Yeah. So it was BU. My wife, being a nurse, went to Northeastern, right? The co-op program was just, it made too much sense.
Right.
And she was the black sheep because, the family still roots for BU, but she was the one that was.
So that's what I did. And I thought that maybe once I got there, I'd probably start rooting for BU a little bit, but if anything, the hatred intensified. Now, the really funny part of this, to tie it back into baseball, and we had a lot of hockey players that played baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, basically it was not necessarily on the level. They were kind of hiding scholarships.
Okay.
Or having hockey/baseball scholarships with, kids that really weren't all that interested in playing baseball.
Wow.
But, the things that went on back in those days were a little bit different. So, funny story, there's two of them. One, John Bradley is a gentleman who was a goalie for BU in the late 80s, early 90s. He played baseball, and he actually was a baseball player, and we were really, really good friends. And we're at a game. I got really lucky. The time that I was at BU, Northeastern actually beat them 10 straight times in hockey, which... Like the all-time series for BU Northeastern hockey is something like 250 and like 100. Right. But I happened to get lucky.
That was the time.
10 straight times Northeastern beat BU. And then by the time I was graduating, BU had sort of gotten it back and reasserted itself. But we were at Walter Brown Arena one night, and Northeastern was beating them, and John Bradley, JB, was in net. And I go, tough one for you. He goes, I saw you pointing at me, calling me a sieve.
Goalie.
Because goalie sieve. And I was. The other good story is a guy that you guys might know because he's from up here, Mike Kelfer.
Yeah.
St. John's Prep guy.
St. John's Prep hockey. Yeah.
So I
BU.
played
Right,
a ton of baseball with Mike because Mike also played for BU baseball and he played for the Larkin Club, which I played for.
Did he ever go to the pros at all? Never?
I don't think so.
No.
He may have been in the minors a little bit, a little small, little on the short side, but a terrific hockey player. I know he's a Prep guy, right?
And Kenny Hodge was on that team too, and he did Kenny Hodge Jr.
Yeah, he went to BC.
Yeah. But I mean, he sniffed the. I think.
Oh, yeah, he was on the Bruins.
Yeah.
So Kelfer was our shortstop, and we're pitching at Northeastern. We're playing at Northeastern, and I'm pitching. So I do my warm-ups. The ball goes around the horn, and the third baseman usually brings it in. So Kelfer goes, no, give me the ball. He's playing short. He comes over, he puts the ball in my glove. He goes, this must be like a dream come true for you, huh? Just don't throw the game. I go, all right. And he was totally joking around, obviously. But all those hockey players knew that I rooted against them playing hockey. And they, again, great friends, great kids, met a lot of them. And,
well, it sounds like you're pretty tight with that crew still.
Yeah,
to this day.
Some of them, some more than others, but others, it's just like stories at this point. But those are things that I probably haven't thought about in 30 years,
while?
But I can still see the look on Kelf's face. Like, it's supposed to be
that
a
is
dream
funny.
come true.
All right, so I think the last piece before we go to post-graduation from BU is you were selected for the BU Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, my manager, at BU and the Larkin Club, Billy Mahoney, and he decided he had played baseball at BU back in the 60s, and his brother Jack was a really good player. And the program was, at the time, like a regularly funded program like every other sport at BU. And over the years, they had sort of done away with it. It had slipped into club status. Then they brought it back as varsity status in the early 80s, I think. But the resources just weren't there. And he was very frustrated by that. It's something that meant a lot to him. He continued to coach. I graduated in 90. I think that they kept the program going through 96. And it was a Title IX casualty, like a lot of other, Providence College, where Lou Merlone played, also did away with their baseball program. Whoa. So it happens. I think UNH did the same thing. So a lot of baseball programs have gone by the wayside, unfortunately. But it was something that really meant a lot for my manager. And Billy decided he couldn't get any recognition in the regular BU Athletics Hall of Fame. So he started his own BU Baseball Hall of Fame. And one of the other captains, Dave Cunningham, and I were two of the original four that were inducted. And I want to say maybe, I don't know, sometime between like 2005 and 10. But
that's a neat little phone call to get,
remember.
right?
Yeah, it was.
And it probably brings back all the memories too at that point.
It was a lot of fun, and we went over. We had a nice reception over at BU, and I hadn't really been on campus other than like at a hockey game really for a long time. And it was not, we went, we did it up pretty good. We went out and ripped it up a little bit afterwards. So, my wife went over and she's like, oh, it's like you guys were as good as he always says you were, stuff like that. So it was a fun time. I really appreciate Billy doing that for us. And so now my boss, Fred, who Ricky, a little bit because you listen to Patriots Unfiltered.
Yeah.
So he loves to bust my balls about, we got a Hall of Famer here and, stuff like that. And you would know, because I'm on the Hall of Fame committee for the Patriots.
Okay.
So we'll get to that a little bit later, I'm sure. Yeah. But, when they have the Hall of Fame committee meets, Fred and I are part of that committee. And he's like, well, it takes a Hall of Famer to identify a Hall of Famer. That's the kind of stuff that he'll throw at him.
Do you have something you could throw back at him to bust his balls?
I do. I give it back to him. I have to be honest.
As long as you got that go-to.
I do give stuff back.
I'm a professional ball breaker, so if you ever need one, just
you come from a long line.
Yeah,
you come from a long line.
You're like Mike Vrabel. Yeah, because Mike Vrabel majored in it.
That is great.
Well, I heard a little interview today. There was like a little when Stephon Diggs came in, and I think that was part of him coming here. Like, I think they liked the fact that
they appreciate him.
He was a player.
He was a player. and he played at a pretty high level.
Yeah,
It meant,
like,
Diggs said it meant a lot
It's
to him.
something, and that meant I'm glad they got Diggs. I mean, I don't want to go down a different road. We'll talk about that later, but I'm just saying Vrabel.
Well, compared to what you had,
But
I
they
think
said he
it's
was a
much
shit.
better thing.
He
Right.
talked a lot of shit though, huh, Vrabel? Like he was a shit talker.
So when he came
to
back,
Belichick, right? Like
he's oh yeah. So I can't tell a specific story, but he when he came back, just after he got hired, and he had his press conference, and he came in and did a couple of minutes with us on the radio, and we have like a setting like this. We have some chairs, and Fred and I are obviously a little bit older than we were when he was a player. And he comes in and he goes, Jesus Christ. He goes, felt like I walked into a retirement home. Where's the Shady Acres sign? Like, that's literally how he walks in
That is great.
to see us.
That is great. Okay, so before we go to post-graduation, you were working for the Herald when you were in. So that was going to continue on, right?
Yeah, that was what I always wanted to do. Like I said, I got an internship my junior year. The end of 89, I did it all through 90. And when that school year ended, I graduated. And that's when I started to panic a little bit. And I basically, for about 2 or 3 months, didn't really have a job. I would just say, anything you have, anything. Like Shriners game up here.
Yep.
Back in those days, everything got covered. Like that, a lot of that stuff is just a footnote
Falls by the
now. It's
wayside.
all local papers
Yeah.
only. But back then, the Herald covered all of those things. I said, the Shriners game, be happy to do it. Hockey night in Boston or whatever. Anything that you guys cover, I'll be happy to do it during the summer just to try to keep my foot in the door.
What is that game? Like that game? Like, so you're young, you're out of college, you're telling,
Panic.
I'll
The
cover
game
anything.
was Panic.
Right, but I'm saying when, like, you the whole game is just people appreciate whatever you're covering, and then they give you a little bit of a bigger story, and then a bigger story. So that's the way you play that?
Yeah, the editors will look and say, okay, yeah, that might have been a minor thing that he covered, but he did it really well. Or, he wrote it well. We didn't have to do anything to his copy, so that's how you're trying to sort of stand out. I got really lucky around that time. So this, we get through the summer, and then 91 comes around, and I basically do the same thing that I would if I was still a student. I went in and I worked like 3 or 4 shifts a week, answering phones, taking scores, covering high school games, occasionally doing a college game, like I was still an intern. I got paid, but not making anything. Now, I was still living at home with my parents, so I was able to do this because of that. But at the end of that year, and I'm saying to myself, okay, if I got to find a real job, I can't just keep patching it together. And in the same week, 3 different editorial assistants quit. And they have, in sports departments, you have what they call is a racing page and an agate page. The racing is just what it sounds like, Suffolk Downs, Rockingham Park at the time, all the Greyhounds, Wonderland, Raynham, all these things, unfortunately, are all gone.
Yeah, I know.
But they would come through the computer and they needed to be formatted, and you had to make sure that they got formatted. That was a job. And it wasn't an easy one. It was just a tedious one. So someone did racing every night, and someone did agate, which is the scoreboard pages, all the box scores, all the stats, all that kind of stuff. Also a very tedious job, but that's basically entry level.
And that job doesn't
Sports
even
department.
exist anymore because we've got technology that automatically puts it there
Well,
at this point?
like it was automatically, like we didn't have to input anything, but we had to format it.
Okay.
And I would say they probably had, like, we had 2 agate guys every night. Someone worked 5 to 1, and then the other guy, the late guy, worked 7 to 3. So, like, you had to wait for the Dodgers, and I say Dodgers because the Dodgers played every game. I used to say the Dodgers played 150 games a year on the West Coast, and the 12 games that they didn't play on the West Coast, I wasn't working those nights. and every one of those 150 went into extra innings. I'm just like, you'd literally be there at like 1:30, and it'd be like the 9th inning, and it'd be like 3-2, and like,
come on,
and you kept hitting refresh.
Oh. You waiting for the final?
Was it a young person's game?
3-3.
Was it younger people that were doing that, or were there some like?
Yeah, it's an entry level sports department job.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, like generally they're not going to hire you fresh face and say, "Hey, you're going to be my new columnist." Like you had to kind of work your way up. You could be like a copy editor, but even that like required experience at smaller papers. That's generally how it goes. Like same in like TV, when you see people, the anchor on TV is probably not going to get a Boston job out of the gate. They're probably going to be in like Portland or Manchester, New Hampshire.
Right.
and then they
Make their way.
They catch someone's eye, a talent guy's eye, and they work their way up. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to really beat the bushes at the smaller papers. Like
You started at a big one.
I did.
Yeah.
And I got lucky enough to get hired, and I ended up staying there for the
So
balance
91,
of 10
you
years.
filled into one of those people that had left.
I got hired full time.
The race one?
Yeah,
Or no?
I did racing and agate.
Okay.
You know, depending on what night it was.
Yep.
But while you're doing that, they also give you opportunities to cover a crap ton of high school games. You know, high school football. I mean, you see how many games there are.
Yeah.
Back then, if you think about it, if you're the Herald, kill the high school beat. Like Danny Ventura is a legend.
Yeah.
Legend. And everybody loves him. And, you know, first of all, he's really, really good at what he does. You know, like all those games that we used to cover, that's how you get readers. Everybody's interested in local sports.
Of course.
Right.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You know? So we covered a lot of high school stuff. You know, a couple of years go by, the Northeastern thing, you know, was apparent. Hey, why don't you go over and cover the Northeastern game tonight? You know, we need someone there. So I would do a lot of Northeastern basketball and hockey games, bean pots. You know, the NCAA basketball tournament would be at the Garden at the Fleet Center at the time.
When was Calipari
So
UMass?
he got big at UMass, and
Yeah.
you know who really used that to their advantage? He went to the bosses and said, "Hey, I think this guy's I think they're gonna get really, really good." Tony Massarotti.
Really?
Oh.
He ended up covering UMass as a beat.
Was that, I'm trying to, was that mid 90s, late 90s?
Yeah, it was probably 94, 95. He
Okay.
started doing it. I think they went to the Final Four in 96, but he sort of
Wow.
recognized there's
Were you-
something
were you-
that's different going on.
And so were you
he
buddies with
suggested
him?
it.
Were
Yeah.
you buddies with him? Okay.
Yeah, but we were all friends. Mike Felger was there too.
Okay.
We were all friendly, but competitive because we were all in the same basic level. Tony was a level ahead of Mike and I.
Okay.
Tony was. You guys all right?
I don't know. Is your thing do it? Tighten it. Oh, you can't.
Nah, that's good. I'll sit like this.
You got it.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
so Tony was sort of a reporter, and Mike and I were editorial assistants. But you know, we're all young guys. We're all like looking to get promoted and maybe get our eyes on a pro opportunity. You know, and you know, Mike would go over and do sidebars for like a random Red Sox game. You know, they would send me to like the Bruins maybe when the playoffs and they needed extra guys, you know. So we all got a chance to do extra stuff. And I'll go back. This is back to my favorite part where I go self-deprecating. So Andy Hart, who is another professional ball buster, he used to dub my autobiography, The One That Was Left Behind. The Paul Perillo story, The One That Was Left Behind. Because, you know, Tony and Mike are obviously wildly successful. Another gentleman in that sports department at the time you guys might be familiar with, Bill Simmons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
geez,
right.
Wow.
That is right.
He was doing racing and agate with me.
Oh, wow.
Now he's producing 10-part
Where
documentary
did he
series
grow
on
up?
the Celtics.
Where did he grow up? Is he?
Brookline.
Oh, Brookline. Okay, got it.
He went
Okay.
to Holy Cross.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Bill's a good guy. You know,
Yeah.
I haven't like been in Bill's company in probably 30 years. I bumped into him a couple of times at Super Bowls, but I haven't seen him forever.
So
But
you're.
yeah, he was
He's,
like
still,
putting
he's still like a local guy, though. He likes
putting
our
food
stuff,
orders
so.
together at
Oh.
working racing at all
That
hours
is
of the night.
cool. So it's so what? When in the 90s did you know that you made it? In that you never did?
Nope.
Really?
No, I was just
So the
'cause-
move in '99
'cause
was,
in ni-
was,
like-
was let me try this over here.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
the plan was this. So like when I tell you literally 91, I got hired full time. I was making $16,600.
Jeez.
So again, if I wasn't living with my parents, that wouldn't have worked. Even in those days, I wouldn't have been able to pay
Do those
rent.
jobs exist today, and how much is it today? Do you think?
I think they probably have one position that does all that stuff now. And yeah, you would make significantly more.
Okay.
I would have to think. I mean, I don't know about the Herald because the Herald is really, you know, patching it together. The Globe probably has one person that's making a decent
Okay.
living doing that.
Okay.
But so in 91, 92, you know, 93, this is great. I have a full-time job. You know, I was able to sort of pay off my school loans. I was able to pay, you know, I bought a car right after I graduated from college. So those are the only two real bills that I had. And otherwise, it was pretty good, you know. But then as you get to like 95, 96, and it's like, all right, I got to find a way to make some money. You know, it was a little bit more by that time. You know, I used to coach. I don't think I didn't include this part of my little bio. I coached high school baseball at Wellesley High. I coached the JV team from
how many years?
93 to 97.
Okay.
So I always worked at night. So I had my days off, and that worked out great. So then they put me on days, Monday through, because I used to work, like you'd work Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. It was amazing I didn't get married till I was 35. I needed my sister to hook me up on a blind date. But, there was no social life. And I would try to like rush out of work, depending, again, the Dodgers killed you every time you were trying to get last call somewhere. So, when I kept doing that, and then finally got an opportunity to go to the Patriots, and that's.
But you must have learned so much and met so many people in the 90s leading up to that. I mean, was there a part of you that said, "Hey, I'm not making enough money, but I know that I'm learning the craft. I know that I'm getting
like
good
I
at
said,
this."
I was working at night for like the first part of that decade, and then they put me on days. So it was Monday through Friday from 10 to 6. So those are pretty good hours.
Yeah.
And I was it was an extra day because I was working only 4 days, and I went to 5 days, so that was a little bit more money. And like I said, the hours were ideal, and I had a chance. Like I could cover a lot more stuff, because it used to be like, oh, why don't you cover Northeastern? I can't. I have Agate that night. But now I'm working 10 to 6. I could do anything, any night.
Right.
I could get from the Herald to Matthews Arena in 10 minutes. So that freed me up to do more, and that was overtime if I had to do. So I was able to make a little bit more money.
Overtime's good.
I was getting more. I was getting more bylines. I loved covering the Bean Pot. They gave me a college basketball notebook to do, which I really enjoyed. So I liked what I was doing. I just wasn't making enough money doing it.
Got it. So good transition to 99. One last thing though, if it wasn't about money, what did you appreciate more, covering high school, college, or pro?
Nothing will ever top high school.
Really?
Yeah. The kids all just
That's
so excited to talk to somebody, and the
Wow.
coaches are always so appreciative of your coverage. They roll out the red carpet for you. I remember some of my most fond memories are like random Saturdays in March, early March, when the basketball tournament and the hockey tournament would be playing, the MIAA tournaments. Salem would always host the Division I North quarterfinals at Salem High School. And I would say, hey, I don't mind. I'll do all 4 games. And I would just drive to Salem, spend the whole day there. They'd set me up with a nice table. I'd have my computer out. I'd be writing as the game's gone on, and I'd have everything ready. I would go in the athletic director's office, connect to the phone, send the story, come back out, plenty of time for the next game. Some of the, seriously, I know probably people are looking at that like, oh, that sounds
Those are fun games.
Sounds like a great way to, but like, Everett had some great teams, and they played in some of those games with Pat Bradley, who went on and played at Arkansas. And, you guys, I'm sure, know all the great Salem teams with Ricky Brunson and Scooney Penn and those guys. Fenwick had Sean Conley and Casey Arena. So there were some good players that went on to play Division I college basketball.
Who was the lefty pitcher that was huge?
Paul Perillo.
Other than you, that was Salem, and he tried to make it in the pros.
I think he was righty. Jeff Juden.
Jeff Juden. Oh, he's righty. Okay, sorry.
He actually pitched in the World Series for Cleveland in '95.
Wow.
And then we'll take that one full circle too. Playing in the coaching my sons in their little league days, the district tournaments. We played over in Swampscott one day, and Jeff Juden was there. His son was on one of the teams that we were playing against.
So he stayed local.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big guy.
Is the kid big
Really
too?
big. Yeah, he was very tall.
Okay. So we've been holding off for a while. 99, you joined the Patriots.
Yeah, so it goes back to BU. I had one of my former teammates. He was a freshman when I was a senior, a guy named Brian Morey. He was the editor of Patriots Football Weekly, and his assistant is a guy that I think you guys might be familiar with as well, Mike Reiss.
Oh.
Was leaving to go to the Metro West Daily News.
How old's
So,
Mike? I thought Mike was
Mike's
way
a couple
young.
years younger than me.
Oh, just a
Yeah.
couple. Okay. No.
Yeah, probably max 5.
Okay.
I don't think he's that. He's been around for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike's been doing this for a while. So
Okay.
he just looks a lot better than me. And so he was leaving. Brian needed someone to come in, and he knew that I was sort of frustrated with my lot at the Herald. And, you know, I thought about it a little bit, and I talked to the assistant editor at the time, a guy named Hank Hernowitz, who was great, one of my best friends at the Herald. And he said, go and do it. You'll get some experience. You'll get like a year experience being in a pro beat. You'll be in a pro locker room. You'll understand how that works, and come back. We'll just take you back.
And by the way, context for people, if you're in New England, you know what the Patriots were in '99, right? If you're not, they weren't they weren't great yet.
No, but it was still a major beat. Like they had gone, they had gone to the Super Bowl in '96.
That's right. That's right.
You know, and Pete Carroll's this was going into Pete Carroll's last year, so they had made the playoffs in '97 and '98. So they were still a good team. It was a popular beat.
It's a pro football.
Right.
John's
right.
right.
Like the NFL wasn't king in New England yet, the way it is now.
Yeah, no.
The Red Sox still were.
Right.
But it was still a major.
Because if it was 2005, you would have been like, "See you later, goodbye." Right.
So I didn't want to close the door. I didn't my thought was, do I want to go work for a team where I can't really report and I can't say what I want to say and blah 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 blah. But I ended up doing it, and ended up talking to Robert and Jonathan Kraft a little bit, and Jonathan in particular said, look, you're going to have opportunities to do some of these shows, because the radio was, EEI at the time was king, and there were other things, and people are going to ask you if you want to be part of these shows, and by all means, you should do it. But if you're going to do it, you need to be truthful. If we don't win, and you make all kinds of excuses for why we didn't win, no one's ever going to want you back on the show. You got to shoot it like it is. And Jonathan, the Kraft family, but Jonathan in particular, have been very much cutting edge with a lot of the technology. They were the first full color newspaper, which was Patriots Football Weekly, first in the league, first sports website of any kind was Patriots.com.
Wow.
So they were out in front of a lot of these things. We used to do a nightly show called Patriots Sideline, and it was basically a mini little podcast, like a video cast. It was like
before YouTube.
Yeah. But it was like the sports that you would see at night, with like Bob Lobel and Mike Lynch. Only it was just Patriots.
Like Sports Final, you mean? Like something like that?
It was like maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes.
Okay.
And we had a host of it, and Brian and I would be like reporters. Like we would put together packages and do our stand-ups, and we were terrible, but we thought we were great. And we were putting that kind of content in. We were writing the newspaper and doing all these things. And Jonathan was really instrumental in saying, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to shoot them straight. Now, they were always very quick. We don't take any cheap shots, because that's going to look bad. It's going to make the organization look bad, because what you say is going to be perceived as being the voice of the organization. So no cheap shots, no, nothing that's going to paint people more so than, the organization in a bad light. So that always resonated with me, and I got a chance to do a lot of that radio stuff as the years went on. And I would go on. I was telling you guys off air. I started with Ted Sarandis. Doing like 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. And Teddy would happy to give me an opportunity to come in. He would give me gift certificates for doing it.
He seemed like a nice guy.
I ate for free at Pizzeria Uno for about a year.
Nothing wrong with that.
So that's how I did it. And Glenn Ordway started hearing that, and he was doing the big show at the time. He's like, "I hear you. I think you're really good. Would you be interested in doing the big show?" And I was like, "Yeah. I could do this and get paid."
Yeah.
So and again, my boss Fred Kirsch, a little bit, Ricky from Patriots Unfiltered. He was very open with, you need to leave early to go do that. Yeah, that's good, because it was good for the brand. It was good for the Patriots to have their guys out there taken seriously. And Jonathan recognized that from the start. Like, you need to shoot them straight. And truth be told, from 99 to, 2020, it was pretty easy. Because you didn't have to make stuff up about being positive.
Because you were.
Yeah, because they were going 12-4 at minimum and going to the AFC Championship game every year. And, the big controversies that we would come up with on our shows, our podcast that we did, for the Patriots were, if they don't fix this situation with the sub defense, the sub linebackers, they're not going to host the AFC Championship game.
They might not win 12 games this year.
That's what we would literally do. Like, I don't like the depth. They don't have a third corner, and they're going to be on the road come AFC Championship game, something like that. And that was our negativity.
Jeez.
So now it's a little bit more challenging.
It is. So when you got there and finally realized what it was, were you like, you know what, this is for me?
So
this
at first, no.
No.
At first, I had all kinds of regrets. I was like, what did I do? Like, this isn't the same. It was a little more money than I was making, but not a ton. And I was like, I'm not a reporter anymore. I want to uncover stories. I want to find out, are they going to fire? Like, that was the first question I asked in my interview was, let's say I find out they're firing Pete Carroll at the end of the season. Can I report that? And they said yes.
Oh.
Which I don't really think, in retrospect, would have been true. if I could have, if I had learned that, I don't think that I would have been allowed to break it.
Right.
I might have had to wait.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
So there's challenges for working for.
No, but correct me if I'm wrong. The weird thing is that you are getting the stories. You just don't know if you can say them.
Well,
right?
I'm saying if for some reason I uncovered this. Now, I'm not telling you we didn't. Now part of this is we're not allowed to break stories now. Like, truth be told. But we don't really dig for him either.
That's Schefter. Schefter breaks all the stories.
Yeah, Schefter breaks the story by going like this.
Yeah, who just texted me?
Schefter breaks all the stories. Right?
Pete Carroll just got fired. So that's what happens when you get to that level. And Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, for NFL Network, they're at the top of that game, the info game. But yeah, I was a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to sort of be a reporter. I was just kind of being a chronicler of everything that happened. But the whole plan to go right back to the Herald, I had a couple of opportunities, and I went and talked, and like there was some politics involved, and it wasn't right. Just never seemed like the right time.
What would have happened if you did?
I'd probably be in a different line of work now, because the chances of me going back to the Herald, say in like 2003, and still be employed at the Herald are almost none. There's a handful of guys that are. Steve Conroy covers the Bruins. He's been doing it for a long time. He was there. He was another racing agate guy with me, way back in the day. Danny Ventura, who I brought up earlier about high school sports, he's the czar of high school sports.
Yes,
he's still there.
Yep.
But most of my colleagues have moved on or been let go or whatever. And some of them really, really good.
Wow.
But, so my guess is I would have gotten laid off, and I probably wouldn't even be in the business anymore.
So it's a good thing you stuck.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you stuck. Where from 99 to now did digital really take over? And how was that transition?
It was gradual, but like as you got into the middle of the 2000s, the aughts, as they say.
Yeah.
I think we officially started going digital around that time, but we kept the paper alive right up until 18.
Huh.
The last issue that we did was the Super Bowl wrap up of the last Super Bowl they won. So that was the second Rams Super Bowl win was the last paper that we published. But even at that time, like I think in 2010, Andy and I, he was my assistant editor at the time, we stopped traveling to all the games and we started doing pre and post game shows on Patriots.com radio. And we hired freelancers to just cover the games, like to have the writing itself in the paper. So that took a big chunk. So probably it was 7-8 years of no longer doing the everyday bones of the paper. And then eventually we just
Do you miss it?
No.
No. You like the digital better?
Yeah. And it will just say like, what I like better is this. I could sit around and talk all day, as you guys can tell. And I enjoy doing our podcasts on Patriots Unfiltered that we do during the season. We do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday every day. I love that show. And we still do it in the off season on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The pre and post game show, 2 hours before, 2 hours after. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's way easier than writing. Writing's hard.
It's a grind.
Writing's hard. And when, so I covered that team for 26 seasons. I feel like I've written every story there is to write. So I'm just changing names now.
It's,
You know,
it's
like
getting a
this-
little interesting now, though.
You
in
know,
the last couple of
like
years.
how different is Stephon Diggs from Randy Moss?
It's similar
You know,
story.
it's like-
well, you hope it plays out the same way,
Right.
right?
No, but I'm just saying it's like
Yeah.
a guy who some people said is a diva and he's hard to work with. Well, you bring him in. Oh, well, we can sort of, corral him and get him on the right path. And
They're all divas.
well,
Right.
good that's my big thing.
You
Like,
have
were you
to be,
listening this
right?
week? Yeah, that was my
Yeah,
line. I was
yeah.
like,
You
it's
gotta
a group of one. If you're a quality receiver in the NFL over the last 30 years, it's a group of one that wasn't a diva. Larry Fitzgerald.
That was it.
He's like the only completely, totally team-oriented guy. Played on the outside. Later in his career, he moved to the slot. Didn't matter. He just was produced and never bitched. The best guys are always bitching. It's part of the territory.
I feel
it's
like
great.
Belichick liked Fitzgerald too. Like if there were any way he could have gotten him on the team, he
Yeah,
would've.
everybody always asks us, what guy would you want to be on the Patriots that never was? And everybody always says Larry Fitzgerald. He was rumored to be here about 12 times.
Yeah, I mean,
Would you say that too?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
is Edelman a diva? Was he a diva?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah, he's great though. I mean, I like Jewel. I got along really well. So this is an example of how like the things that pop into my head. So Julian Edelman, who was kind of tough to deal with sometimes because he never really wanted to talk to the media, and when he did, he was kind of short with you because he just didn't like it.
Okay.
And I think part of the reason why some of those guys didn't like it is because Bill put a lot of pressure on him
Right.
to shut up and not say anything. You see how Julian is now. There's a
He has
ton
his
of
podcast. He
there's a
says,
ton
"Shut
of
up."
personality there though
Right, yeah.
that he never really let us see in press conferences or like the scrums in front of the lockers. So I was talking to him one day and like the receiver's glove, they call them cutter gloves. I think they're cutter.
Yep.
Right. So my son was playing football at the time. He was a freshman at Bishop Fenwick, and he's like, I want to get those cutter gloves. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like $100 gloves or something like, no, we ain't doing it. We're not doing that, and he had never played. He played football in youth, but he broke his femur and was never, so he never actually was able to play. It was before the first game. It was in practice.
Oh boy.
So he was going to try to play football for the first time, basically, as a freshman in high school. I'm like, yeah, before I go out and spend $100 on a pair of gloves, let's see if you make it through double sessions. So I'm just like kind of, shooting the shit with Jules. And I was like, yeah, my son's trying to play receiver. And he goes, yeah. I go, can I just ask you a question? Like, do the gloves matter? Like, I know like you guys probably have different weather gloves.
Yeah.
If it's raining, if it's snowing or whatever. But do they really matter? Like for a high school kid, he goes, what does he want? He goes, cutter gloves? He goes, those are the best. Those are my gloves. He goes, what color are your uniforms? He goes, what color are the uniforms? I go, black and gold. He goes, all right, I got you.
That's awesome.
Next day, he gave me 2 pair of black and gold cutter gloves.
Wait, this is when he was playing or after?
No, he was playing.
Wow.
He was playing.
That's
now,
nice.
I don't usually tell those kinds of stories on the air because I can kind of get in trouble. It's like kind of akin to asking for an autograph.
You're okay with our audience.
You can get fired. You can
By
get
the
fired
way.
for that kind of stuff. But I think I've told that story on Patriots Unfiltered. It's just like night and day. Like the guy's there. The nice guy is there. But I think Bill sort of had them all wound so tight that they had a hard time sort of letting that personality out. But yeah, like Julian was a lot to deal with, just like everybody else.
See, I always thought he was like the hard work and not
Oh, he
that
is.
guy.
He
I
is.
know he was, but I didn't know but they all seem to be.
Well, I
pains in
think
the
it's
asses,
correct me
right?
if I'm wrong. It's the ultimate in irony where these players now that they've retired, technically, is he in the media now? Because he wants to get interviews.
Yeah.
And,
It's
and
amazing.
now all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, don't be a hypocrite,
It's
right?
amazing. We make fun of him a lot. When we see him, oh yeah, you can't get you away from a microphone now.
And Gronk's all over the place. Like he's on with him too.
Gronk was good. Like Gronk, I think, kind of enjoyed his media responsibilities.
Yeah.
So he wasn't. Jules.
bucked the trend a
Jules
little
used
bit.
to hide from it.
What was Brady like? Did he? I mean, he was just so calculated.
Company line.
Okay.
So the real good story for Brady is, when we still did the paper back, in the day in 2000. So it was my second year. Every year in training camp, we used to do what we call a rookie diary. We would just pick one guy and we'd talk to him after every practice and he'd tell us everything that happened in the day. And we'd write it basically verbatim in his words. Monday, July 27th, worked on 7 on 7. And it was Brady. Brady was the rookie diary, his rookie year in 2000. So it was me and another guy named Shane Donaldson, who was our intern at the time. We were basically responsible for talking to him every day. So now, like 2001 comes around and he gets the starting job and he's playing well. And you're like,
Wait a second.
we're boys. Like I talk to this guy every day, and for a little while, we were like, it was like, Paulie, like, what's going on? How's Beth? And then it gets to like 02, 03 when they won the second one. If he walked in right now, I think you would probably go, "Hey, babe," because maybe not sure what my name is, and he would call me babe. Good to see you, babe.
Hey, babe.
I'm thinking of like, hey, Otis, he loves us. Wow. There's some player. I mean, he's obviously, no one's.
It's hard, and I don't mean that as a criticism to Tom, because it's hard to take on that amount of.
But are
fame.
there's some players that had, not maybe that level of fame, that are still humble and don't forget, the interview they had when they were nothing. Are there players like that you've come across?
Yeah, and I would say that locker room, like, it becomes a grind when you do something for as long. You guys, I don't know what you do for a living, but you do the same thing for a long time.
Yep.
Even when you think it's quote unquote cool, like as I say, working in the toy box for covering sports, it's a grind. It's a job.
Right.
Those guys are great. And it's amazing to me how few players have come in and out of that locker room over the years that I haven't liked. There is like a list: Richard Seymour, Ty Warren, Vince Wilfork, Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, Mike Vrabel, Ted Johnson, Roman Pfeiffer. I could go on and on and on. These guys were awesome.
So was that by design?
Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, Stephon Gilmore, great guys. Now it's funny, I'm not in the locker room as much anymore, and these guys are so young now. I feel like I've completely lost touch. I don't even know them anymore.
Well, they're our kids' age. That's the scary
they're
thing.
Kids. They really are kids.
Who was the defensive lineman who everyone was afraid of?
Ted Washington.
Was it Ted Washington? They're like, you wouldn't even look at him. He'd like chew your head off. Was he like scary?
All right. Here we go. So Ted Washington was like 6'6", 380, 375.
Big
mammoth.
Boy. Oof. Yeah.
Shoulders like aircraft carriers. Just huge. So I wanted to do a story. I wanted to do a feature on him. So like if you're just doing like a regular story, you could be like in a scrum with 10 other guys, and you could probably get a couple of quotes out of all the different questions and put a story together. But if you want to write a feature about a guy, maybe about his background, his upbringing, I wanted to write a feature about his charitable work, because he did a lot of charity stuff. Again, Patriots Football Weekly, kind of, that's why they call me sunshine.com, right? So those are the kinds of features that we, would write a lot. Not all of them were like that, but this is what I wanted to do with Ted. So I walked up to him in the locker room one day, and he's sitting down right in front of his locker. Bobby Hamilton, another one of that long list of guys who was fantastic, sitting over here. Ted's there. I go over and I said, "Hey, Ted, you got a second?" He just turns his head, doesn't say anything, just turns his head. I said, I'm Paul Perillo. I'm with Patriots Football Weekly, and I want to write a feature on you. And I wanted to sort of discuss, all the charitable work that you do, and, what got you interested in that, and why it's so important to you. And, if I could get maybe 10 minutes, to chat with you when you can. Doesn't have to be now, when you can. Just turned his head back to the locker.
Nothing.
Never responded. Never responded.
By the way, you have the same boss, right? Like,
correct. We don't generally play that card, but yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So Bobby Hamilton looks at him. He goes, "Man, were you even listening?" That's what, he's from Mississippi, Bobby.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a story about a feature on Bobby who he actually had a brother that he didn't know about. Long lost brother. I remember. Oh, brother, where art thou?
Yeah.
So like I had a decent relationship with Bobby. And he goes, "Man, he's one of us. Are you even listening to him?" And like, so he turns around and he goes, What do you want to do again?" So
he really wasn't listening.
I want a story where you look wonderful.
I go through the whole thing to him, and he goes, "Okay, meet me here tomorrow." So I go and meet him. Long story short, I do the interview with him. Couldn't have been better. That's the only questions I asked him were about, some of that
charity
stuff.
Yep.
The only thing his dad had played a little bit in the NFL, and I had asked him if that was sort of where he got his, because he obviously wasn't growing up like a lot of other inner city kids. he was doing, his father, and he just he put his hand on my recorder. He goes, "This interview's over."
Really?
Did not want to
Triggered
talk,
something.
Did not want to talk about his father. So probably my fault. There's probably something there that I didn't know about that I should have known about it. If you're going into an interview, I probably should have been more prepared.
Yeah.
So he ended. That was it. And I was like, okay, hey Ted, thank you. This is perfect.
And you had enough stuff.
More than I need.
Okay.
So I write the story. It comes out in the paper, the next week. And I'm standing in the locker room, and I'm talking to Andy Hart. Andy is looking forward. I have my back to the rest of the locker room, and here comes Ted. Paper in his hand, open like this, making a beeline right to me.
Oh, Jesus.
Wait, not happy or happy?
You don't know yet.
At this point, it's unclear.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So Andy has this look on his face like he's seen a ghost. And he goes, "Oh, shit."
It's coming in hot.
And I went, "What?" And I turned. And right as I turned, he's there. And I'm telling you, this guy is a mountain. He put his hand on my shoulder. I thought I was going to break. And he just looked. He goes, "Thank you."
Oh.
Nice.
I said, "For what?" He goes, "That's the first story anyone's ever written about me that didn't have anything to do with my size."
Oh.
And I went, "Well, I told you I wanted to talk about your charitable work." And he goes, "I appreciate it. Thank you." And I said, "Anytime, Ted."
I thought you were going to say, I turned to Andy and I said, "Thank God we didn't keep that thing in about his size."
So he walked away, and then like two members of the PR staff come running over. "What was that all about?" And I'm like, "Now you come over? What if what if he was mad?" Everybody was like, just like seen it. And I was like, I was shook.
But that's the exception rather than the rule, right? Like you don't have to deal with that all the time.
But everybody was afraid of him, right? Like
but I'm just saying with
I was
all the
legit
other-
afraid of him.
Yeah.
There's a handful, like Corey Dillon.
Same deal.
frightened
Oh, yeah.
me.
He was clock killing.
The guy that you would think frightened you
Yeah.
kind of weirded me out.
He was
Aaron
a scary- he was
Hernandez
a scary-
kind of weirded me out.
Oh, so you
I didn't
your
know. I'm
spidey
not.
senses?
No, I'm
Okay.
not going to say that I went that far, but
Yeah.
he kind of like he was odd.
Well, there were stories that people were afraid of him. I think Edelman told that he's like, stay away from him.
Welker told him.
Oh, was it
Welker told Edelman stay away from him.
Right. So he's like, that works for me because he knew something was off.
Yeah.
You know?
So like, there's a handful of guys. Now, the funny thing about Corey Dillon is we had him in for a podcast. Like within the last year, we do these what's called Pats from the Past, and we do like 45 minutes, something like this, very laid back, low key anecdotes, story time. We had Corey in, and I told him like about 10 minutes into it, I said, there's not many guys in that locker room that scared me. You frightened me. And he goes, he's like laughing. It was really funny. Like
was that his defense mechanism so he didn't have to talk to you guys?
Well, I think at the time there was some stuff going on with Belichick, and he got benched because I think he was late for a practice or something like that. And I don't give a bleep. You go ask Belichick that question, and everybody's just like,
that doesn't fly.
Yeah, he was an intimidating guy.
He was really good though for the team.
The 2004 team,
right?
And for my money, is the best team in Patriots history, and that's why. Because they had a dynamic, but they always ran the ball well. Like in 01 and 03, they ran it well with Antoine Smith, but Corey Dillon was dynamic running it, and Brady at that point is now, this is the third time around for the Super Bowl run. He was Brady by that point. They could run, they could throw, and their defense was unbelievable.
That was a good team. That's when they had their like span that record, right? Was it 20?
I went to that Super Bowl.
That was over the 03-04 season.
Beat the Eagles. I was there.
Yeah, that's the only one I wasn't at.
Really?
Yeah, Will was born 2 days before.
You're a nice dad.
You're
a nice dad. I actually went to the game. My brother-in-law was in always had really cool tickets, and so he's like, "Do you want to go to the game?" My son was born. When was that Super Bowl? Tyler was born.
That would have been 05, January of 05.
Yeah, December 28th.
February.
So I was the jerky dad. I told my wife, "Can I just go?" Because like my brother-in-law has tickets. So I went.
What was the timing?
Tyler's born December 28th.
And you went when?
No, I'm saying I went to that Super Bowl.
Oh, but that was February.
Yeah. Okay, but still. Yeah.
The birth was imminent.
I got you.
He was born on the 4th. I believe that Super Bowl was the 6th.
All right, Paul, you talked to my wife. She still wasn't happy that I was leaving her with a newborn.
I will. I'll talk.
Can I ask you this? So you were there in New Orleans. Wait, I'm looking. Like you were at the first Super Bowl. Like how was that?
Incredible.
I mean, that's like because
So
they were
I-
like never like.
I actually- yeah.
You mean the first win?
I was
okay.
actually at the first one
Right.
that they lost in New Orleans.
Green Bay.
Yeah, the
I was
Green
there
Bay game.
too.
I went
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that game. My brother and I went to that game. But the 01, it was just a surreal experience because of the
9/11,
the
the
uncanny
whole thing.
knack of the way they kept winning games. It was like one fluke after another. I mean, like David Patton gets knocked unconscious, and that's why
ball
he's
went.
out of bounds because his head goes down out of bounds and the ball's laying, touching him. So, like, they had all kinds of fluky things. I don't really think any of us thought that it was going to ride
that
all the
way.
way through. And I remember the AFC Championship game in Pittsburgh. I
That Drew
was like-
Bledsoe.
I was like, before that game, I was like, there's no way they're winning this game.
Right, this is where it
There's
ends.
no way they're winning this
Yeah.
game. And I had said on our show, I said, if they win this game, I'm going to go on the bus and I'm going to sing I'm a Believer.
And you had to?
After the game. And I ended up going on the bus and there was no one there. And I said, I'm a believer. And I ran off. And I said, I did it. I fulfilled the bet.
Right.
Because there was nobody on the bus at the time.
Right.
But yeah, like when Drew went in, I still am a huge Drew guy. He's my favorite Patriot. Him and Rodney Harrison.
But from a human being point of view, or
Yeah, I
skills
just like
on the
that.
field?
I got season tickets because of Drew.
Yep.
That's when I started going
Parcells
to games.
too, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So that meant a lot to me. And then when he went in, I had like this pit in my stomach. I'm like, no, that's not how this is going to end.
Right.
They're not going to lose because my guy came in and wasn't ready. And he played just well enough. I mean, it was a couple of shaky moments, but obviously that first drive he came in, I was like,
Yeah.
this is unbelievable. This is what a story this is. And then when they went to New Orleans, it
That was
was
up
like,
in the air, right? They didn't know who was starting for real.
yeah,
at that point, or-
they pretty much knew it was Brady. I think
Okay.
Bill had told the team it was Brady, but I think Drew was sort of holding out hope. But there was because of 9/11, there was no 2 weeks. There was only
Right.
it was the AFC Championship game. We literally went home, had to finish the paper for the AFC Championship game. It's probably like 5 or 6 in the morning. We had to go home, pack, and come back. And the buses left. I mean, we probably slept at maybe like
Jeez.
a half hour. And then at the time, like we still, now it's so corporate. Everybody goes, but then it was like, you can
Still
have,
people.
Yeah.
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 So we were all like my wife, she was my fiance at the time. Like she was allowed to go. My brother and my father went, we were able to get tickets. Like,
Forget about that
Yeah,
now.
right.
now,
Yeah.
like it's a nightmare.
What is the Super Bowl, like the price on the ticket? What is the Super Bowl nowadays? 1,000?
I think 2,400. I want to say
Is the ticket price.
for one of them. Like I think the ones those ones, and I have it matted on a frame and
Yeah.
stuff. Like the pin from the first one. I think it might have been $400 or
Yeah.
maybe $600.
Yeah.
But I think it's like $2,000 now. The tickets that we get, because I still get 2 tickets.
Okay.
Like for being a full-time employee.
Wow.
And not every full-time employee gets them. It depends on it's a bunch of corporate.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Like if you're a director level
Mhm.
and you need to have a purpose to be
Okay,
there.
gotcha.
Like if you're like in charge of like food and beverage, you're a vice president, but what do you got to do with the
Right.
So
right,
something
right,
like
right.
that, you know?
Right.
So it's hard. Like there's a lot of corporate sponsors that go now. Like they didn't do that in the first one in New Orleans in 01. And I just remember we were in the hotel and we had a big, you have a big work area that serves as like the admin level. Everybody's in this big room and like Robert's just walking around and you're like, this is unbelievable, and you feel like Chris Farley on set, talking to
Remember
Paul
that
McCartney. Like, hey, Mr. Kraft, this is awesome.
That's awesome. That's
He was
what I
prob-
meant. Like you're there, and that was. I mean, even as a fan, I still can't believe they won that game. And
that's what started it all.
It was
The
just
first one,
unbelievable.
obviously, was just special. It was, and we didn't even know. We were so tired and didn't know any better, and just working all the time. I remember we were doing the podcast, because we do all the podcasts even at the Super Bowl, and we're ripping it up pretty good on Bourbon Street every night. We're
Nothing else to do.
We're
but
a lot.
that.
We're a lot younger then.
Yeah.
So it used to be Fred Kirsch, my boss, and then Brian, me, and Shane. It was the 4 of us. So Brian and Fred decided there was U2 was the halftime.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
a beautiful day.
So
Yeah.
they have press conferences for that stuff, during the week. So Brian and Fred decide, well, we love you too. We're going to go to the press conference. We're going to go see Bono. But you guys got to run the podcast. So Shane and I, two low guys on the totem pole at the time, we had to run the podcast. Well, we were like the four of us were all like running on fumes, by noon the next day. Shane literally just fell asleep. And I don't want to hit it because I don't want to hit the mic, but he hit it. He and it was like, boom, like his head. And I'm like, yeah, the noise you just heard was Shane Donaldson passing out. So I'll be flying solo the rest of the show. Like it was just surreal.
That is so. Belichick, what was your relationship with him? Was he didn't really talk to you, or did you have an interesting relationship for all those years?
I mean, at first it was okay. I would describe it probably as icy overall. I think he tolerated us. I think Bill does not like the media, does not like having to tolerate the media. And in particular, I think he resented the fact that he had to deal with in-house media. It's like, I can't control what these a-holes are doing. Can I at least control what our guys are doing in here? For the most part, we were okay. He gave us 3 rules. It was no breaking any injury stories, no breaking any contractual stories, and no cheap shots. Those were our 3 rules that we had to live by.
Did you ever break them?
So, not really, no. And this kind of came into play. Like, I think when we traded Bledsoe, we had known about it, and we broke it on the website. Which was a big thing. And that was more of a Jonathan initiative. Like, he wanted to do that. And I don't think Bill was upset about it, but I think he kind of looked at it as like, all right, this is fine, but let's hold off on this. So the one time that I got under his skin was probably around 04, 05, sometime in a fullback that they brought in, a veteran fullback named Fred McCrary.
I remember that name.
Yep.
You guys, really?
Yeah.
So in the in those times they had a conditioning run before training camp started. And it was kind of infamous because a lot of times guys would not be able to start training camp clearly because they hadn't passed the conditioning run.
Once in a while, someone would get cut for that, right? It
right.
seemed like,
Parcells did it to a big lineman, a big undrafted lineman. But so Bill, I think, sort of understood that this has become a big deal. So he was going to try to suppress that information as to who did and who didn't pass. But I think he kind of made a misstep. And he started saying, well, these 3 aren't ready. Those 3, are okay. And then there's like 3 others that so I'm like, okay, so if Ty Law is coming off ankle surgery and Lawyer Malloy is coming off shoulder surgery, but Fred McCrary is not having anything said about him, the inference to me is
right.
He flunked the conditioning run.
Yeah.
So we're talking to Fred McCrary. And I said, and he goes, I didn't flunk the conditioning run. I pulled my hamstring 2 weeks ago. I haven't even taken the conditioning run. So I was like, why did he hang those guys out to dry? Like, how many of these guys? So long story short, I write a column saying I think it was sort of unfair that he identified some guys as having injuries, and that's why they weren't practicing. And there was other guys not practicing
because everyone else was inferring
that he let
what you were
hang,
inferring.
and everybody, like the Herald and Globe, all wrote Fred McCrary failed conditioning run.
Right.
And I was like, that's not fair. I know that he didn't fail the conditioning run. And Bill didn't like that.
Oh.
Bill read the story, called it total shit. Kind of courted me in an elevator and really got mad.
Did he ever tell you why he didn't?
Well, he said, I read your story. It was total shit.
Huh.
Total shit.
What do you answer?
Said it
What do
twice.
you say to him?
So I said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'd like to talk to you about it a little bit because I think you had all you had to say in your story.
Ugh.
And the doors of the elevator opened up and we're in for the press conference now in the big, the red level press box. And everybody turns and looks and they see me and Bill. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I would say from that point on, not the warmest and fuzziest relationship with Bill, but I will say this in his defense. He was very fair after that. Like, it's not like he screwed me once. He's dead to me.
Okay.
Like, if I asked a question, he didn't ignore it. If I did something, he acknowledged it.
He just wasn't going to invite you on the boat.
But yeah, and the same thing happened to Felger about the boat. Back to Ted Washington, Felger was on the boat. And Felger got off the boat, I mean, metaphorically, because he had written that Ted Washington was re-signing as a free agent in 2004. It wasn't done yet. Ended up falling through. The agent was mad that they planted a story in the paper saying that it was done. It wasn't done, and they blamed Felger. All it takes is one thing.
That's it.
Did he have a favorite, though? Like someone in the media that like he'd leak stuff to, or that he like trusted more than...
there's been guys periodically over the years that have been in that role. Like I think Felger was for a time. For the most part, his guys are national guys.
Okay.
You know, Schefter is probably a guy that
because they don't want to be provocative. They don't want to.
They don't want to give the local guys anything because F the local guys.
Can I ask you this? Yeah. I have a friend that argues with me about things, and I always say, like, I feel like like the owners might have, if they want a story out, they tell it to somebody and it gets out in the press, like they want their side of it. And if somebody else, you know, like if a player wants to, you know, get a story out there, like
you just want to know if that happens.
Does that happen? Like,
yeah, I would say it probably does. This is a little inside baseball, like inside media stuff. Like and I understand that most of the time, general fans, they don't care. Like Stephon Diggs signed. They don't care who told them that he signed. They just care that he signed.
There's the news.
You know, but I think the media always tries to look at the whys. Like, why do you think Ian Rappaport got that story? Or why do you think, like I'm thinking right now, Adam Schefter continues to say he thinks the Giants is still contemplating taking Shedeur Sanders. And I think ESPN continues to put mock drafts. I think Mel Kiper has a mock. I think it's good business.
Kiper has Hunter going to the Patriots, I think, unless it changed since the two quarterbacks.
Wait, who going to the Patriots?
Hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah, because he has Shedeur Sanders going 3 to the Giants.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he will not go 3 to the Giants. I'm just saying I would be highly doubtful of that because of what they've done. Right. I think if you really like Shedeur Sanders, I don't think you sign 2 veteran quarterbacks.
Maybe one.
But they're 2 guys for like a 1-year deal.
I know, but if you like Sanders, you only need 1 veteran quarterback to go with them, not 2.
Can they cut one of those guys? Like, are those like contracts? Like, all right, one of them might pan out. One of them,
but it's like blowtorching money.
Right. Well,
you just gave him money to sign, and now you're going to cut him.
Those guys are
again not impossible.
Right.
Not impossible.
But Dayball's like playing for his job now.
That's why I think he needs to have Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Like Shedeur Sanders is going to come in and win. I know what Jaden Daniels did last year, and I know what C.J. Stroud did 2 years ago. But the more likely thing is even when the guy plays well, like Drake May last year, you win 1 game.
Right. But I mean, maybe it's like, I can get more time. Let's develop him, and maybe he can buy another year or 2 with the owners.
But if you created a controversy with these 2, veteran quarterbacks that have come in now too, like, do you want that, or is it always going to be Wilson?
Who do you think's better?
Yeah,
you think that Wilson's better than?
Yeah, Winston's a train wreck.
Yeah. By the way, just one comment about C.J. Stroud. Great 2 years ago, was not good last year when he was on my fantasy team. That's all I'm saying.
He definitely, I mean, his numbers tailed off.
I was
especially,
all in. I'm like, here we go.
Well, losing Diggs and losing Nico Collins for the long stretch of time in the offensive line was not good for them. But, back to that whole thing about where stories come from. And again, I am interested in it because I'm in the media, but this whole thing that they continue to tie Sanders to the Giants at 3, I think is Dion. Like Adam Schefter, Mel Kiper, ESPN, it's in their best interest to keep Deion Sanders close as an ally.
Wow.
We're gonna bump up his value because we're gonna have your back. I might be completely wrong about that, but I think of all of those kinds of things in that light. Somebody stands to benefit from something.
Will you ever figure that out? Or
no. I mean, like it's not like that important.
No, but I'm just saying, like after the fact, do you find out things years later? That's what happened.
Well, think about all of the different exposés about the Patriots that happened at the end of the Belichick Brady era with Seth Wickersham and ESPN and everybody at the time killed us all.
Yeah, they thought it was nuts.
They killed us, bro. You guys are all... I mean, like, Felger does great. You're making it up. But he's right. They used to make fun of us on Patriots.com. We would talk about this. Yeah. Sunshine.com, they would make fun of us. Because it's so clear that this static...
I think I'm going for... I think...
all the time.
You're saying that, right?
It's my theme music. You don't have any theme music.
Yeah, I know it.
Now, is that one recording, or do you don't do it?
We sing it every time.
Oh, you do it fresh every time.
They sing it.
Okay, all right.
That's
Okay.
great. I sing along.
Yeah, I hate when they do it because sometimes they replay it later and they isolate just you with no music in the background. And I couldn't.
Well, that's the
carry
whole
a tune
shtick.
with a
It's
handle.
better if it sounds wacky.
Right.
It's better.
Right.
It's great. I love it.
But yeah, they were making fun of us at the time because you're trying to create a controversy that doesn't exist. This isn't true. Blah 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 blah. And like, you found out. Like, you watched Did you watch the Dynasty documentary?
Yeah,
it was all true. It was right there.
Yep.
You know,
was that a hit piece for Belichick? No, I'm just kidding. No.
So I don't think that would. Let's put it this way. I don't think that played out the way that they wanted it to play out. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I mean, it ended up being it's pretty negative on Belichick, and I don't think they necessarily intended that.
Wow.
So let me ask you this about at the end of that whole thing with Brady. If they gave Brady the Drew Brees contract, would he have stayed? Oh, is he going anyway?
Yeah, I think if they gave him the money, he would have stayed.
Because what was it, 2 years, 22?
If they gave him $50 million?
Yeah, so it was 25 for 2 years. That's what.
Yeah,
Drew Brees
I don't know
I think that's all he wanted.
I don't know what the number was, but if they gave him money, he would have stayed. I think.
Yeah. And I read stuff now. It's like
they try to make themselves feel better that it was a done deal.
But let me play this out. If he did stay, do you think we win a Super Bowl?
No.
We didn't have the team.
He knew that the team was on the decline then.
No, but I do think that they could have continued to be relevant and would have bought him more time to get somebody.
Yeah. Who do you think was the nicest Patriot that you ever got to know and interviewed and was on the team, whether they were incredible or not? Like, nicest Patriot.
So I have that's a tough question because there's so many. Devin McCourty probably would be my answer. Devin and Jason are tremendous, and I don't know Jason as well because he was only here for a year, but I am fortunate enough to be part of the preseason broadcasts, and now they're there. They're my colleagues. Again, can't get them away from microphones now.
They do well. They're good though.
They're really good.
Yeah,
Jason does the network broadcasts.
And
Devin is part of the Football Night in America.
He had a huge play at the Super Bowl. I mean, him knocking that ball away in the end zone. You don't really hear a lot about
Brandon Cooks.
That was a
Brandon
huge
Cooks
play.
All alone in the end zone, and Jared Goff took 20 minutes to get it to him.
But he came out of nowhere and just came in and swatted it. But they are really good on
it. Like I would say those two guys are as nice, Matthew Slater, those guys just genuine. And then, like I'm telling you, there's a long list. But I would put the McCourties at the top of the list for the nicest.
What about in media? Who's the nicest guy in media?
That's my buddy.
Other than you.
That's my buddy. That's my buddy, Mike Reiss. Mike Reiss
seems like
has never had a bad day in his whole life. And I've known Mike for a long time. He's been a good friend and a good colleague. We are going to be on All Access, again this week. And we do it once a month in the off season. And I really enjoy our roundtables. But he is as genuinely nice a person as you will find. You think it's one of those guys, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. You meet a guy that's so nice and you automatically don't like him and you think he's a fraud. There's something wrong there.
Right.
Not there?
It's not.
Do you think
he's got a skeleton in the closet?
Is it tougher to do your job and be really nice? Would it be easier to do your job and be a jerk? Even if you're, in front of the crowd, you're a good guy. Like, is it tough to be a nice guy in your industry?
I don't know. I always say, and I don't think it's all that hard to be a good human being. Like you walk by someone in the hall, acknowledge them, say hello, good morning. You don't have to stop and get the life story, but I'm walking by another person. I'm going to acknowledge that there's another person there. I think there's a very low bar. For me, the low bar with the players, whenever they call me by name.
Yeah.
Whenever they call me by name, I'm like, oh, he does know who I am.
Got it.
And again, that the locker room now, none of them know who I am. But I'm never in the locker room anymore.
I think some of them.
I don't really go in.
They're all new faces anyway.
I don't go in the locker room anymore, so I don't really know any of these guys.
So if the Patriots put you in the draft room, who do you pick? Assuming that anyone will be there, right? Like we don't know if certain individuals will be there.
So 3 quarterbacks go first.
No, I'm going to say that Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are off the board.
In which?
I'm going to say they're gone. I would pick Carter first, Hunter second, if I had my choice of anybody.
Would you do that?
I would, yeah. I think Carter did kill for Carter.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not sure. So I'm a little leery on Travis Hunter. I don't know if he's going to be. Is he the best receiver in the draft? McMillan,
He might be.
I told Johnny, like, McMillan gives me the N'Keal Harry, whatever
N'Keal
Harry vibes.
I love the N'Keal.
Yeah, whatever.
Mike Lombardi called him N'Keal.
Yeah, N'Keal Harry vibes, right?
No, actually, he called him Keneal.
Yeah. But like, just like, oh, he can go up and grab these. He's a high point. He was horrible. And I'm getting the McMillan vibe. I mean,
Harry
vibe
I mean, I get it. I think he's a little bit more flexible and athletic than Harry was. And I got to be honest, I was surprised with how unproductive Harry was. I didn't think Harry was a great pick when they made it, but I didn't think it was a bust.
Well, yeah.
You literally could have thrown a dart at a receiver on a dartboard and picked a better
they
receiver.
literally took the only one
that didn't work out.
That didn't work.
Like McLaren, they had like that was AJ Brown that year. McLaren, like
so. If Carter and Hunter aren't there, then who do you pick?
That becomes much tougher. I would probably go to one of the Georgia defensive
okay,
guys.
so you're not going with
I
short
would say
hands.
probably Jalen Walker.
You're not going with short arms.
No.
Okay.
So what about
That
trading
scares me.
back a couple of picks? Maybe Shador's there. The Raiders want him, and maybe because I told you my idea, right? Like maybe, and I don't think anybody wants to hear it, but like that kid Ty Warren, I'd love to like trade back a little bit.
I wouldn't mind
still
taking
there.
Ty Warren.
When do you think he's going?
He's going in the top 10.
Top 10, but not 4. I don't think you can't draft him at 4, could you?
So, but here's the thing, and I know this sounds snotty, but like someone's going to go 4.
Yeah,
that doesn't really deserve to go 4. Like in a typical draft is probably not worthy of being the 4th player of the draft. But in this draft, someone's going to go 4, and you got to hope that you get a guy who can play.
Wouldn't it be awesome for like a 10-year tight end to be with Drake May though? Like,
I think Ty Warren makes sense. I don't want to do this. I think Ashton Genty would make some sense.
I know. I hear that too.
You know, you could make an argument that he's the next best player in the draft after the big 2.
A lot of people say that too because of like, you know how Vrabel had
Derrick
Henry, and like he wants to, but he's not a big guy.
He's not that.
Guy.
He's more like a LaDainian Tomlinson type.
But he looks special though.
So us not knowing anything now.
Catch.
So us not knowing anything now. Do you think like the day before the draft, are we any clearer with what the Patriots are going to? Maybe you are, but I'm saying like, will we know anything more between now and then?
I think there's a chance you might know some more information about individual guys that could come out. You know, like the arms for Campbell or whatever, but. I'm pretty skeptical of the whole thing.
Well, you know.
So no, I know.
What about Cleveland? Like Cleveland needs a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback.
So Cleveland right now has Kenny Pickett, and a lot of people think that they're going to add Kirk Cousins. And Cousins isn't going to sign with anybody until after the draft because of what happened to him last year in Atlanta when they drafted Penix.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that Cleveland could do that. I just feel. And this is not from any knowledge or anything. I talked about my reservations for going to work for a team and not being a reporter. Reporters, trying to work angles in their sources and try to talk to people that work in Cleveland and working with the Giants. I don't do any of that. So in some regards, it's fun to just be an analyst and just kind of like be like everybody else.
Armchair quarterback.
As opposed to trying to find every last detail. But I just watch everything that Cleveland and New York has done, and it doesn't seem to me that either one of them has much interest in Shedeur Sanders, which is disappointing for the Patriots because obviously that's going to take one of those 2 potential guys off the board.
But I still feel like it could work in their favor if he falls to them. Then someone might want to trade up with them for him. Maybe.
That could happen.
Or they said he could fall out to 20.
So that's why,
right?
So they're 4. 5 is Jacksonville. They're not taking them. 6.
The Raiders 6 or 7.
6 of the Raiders. They just re-signed Geno Smith to an extension.
That's true.
So I think either that or the Jets are in there. The Jets could take him, and the Saints could take him. I think the Saints are at 9. Those 2, I think, could take Sanders. But if you're either one of those teams and you want to take Sanders, do you want to take him bad enough to trade up for him?
Right.
Like, if someone wants to trade up more from behind you to get in front, then I would let him do it.
It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be interesting.
I just hope whatever happens.
I'm looking forward to the draft.
It is.
I'm really looking forward to it.
We feel good about it. So I think the last football question before you ask your music questions.
I don't have to ask music questions.
So I thought you were going to ask this, but how important was Dante Scarnecchia to the Patriots?
Yeah,
and how was he as a man?
He's tremendous in both regards. Again, like you asked the question about like the nice people, the people that treat you with nothing but respect all the time. don't have enough nice things to say about Dante Scarnecchia. And I do think that the reputation that he has is the best in the business. His preparation, his attention to detail. Josh McDaniels talks about how much he would lean on him in terms of game planning and how they would formulate what they were going to do, how they were going to attack an opponent. So much more than just an offensive line coach, a guy who'd been around for so long, so disciplined and structured. Tremendous.
Is he retired? Like, has nothing to do with the
He's
team,
working
or
with BC kids right now, like for camps.
Oh, he is.
I think I read something
I
like that.
think he does some consulting stuff here and there, and I think if the Patriots asked him to do some things, he certainly would. But he is retired. He's not around the organization.
It's too bad that didn't rub off on one of the other assistant coaches or something.
I have another guy. What about Ernie Adams?
Ernie, I haven't seen in a little while.
Was he was important to the team
he's
too,
a different cat, man.
Like, yeah, he's out.
It's a different cat. Yeah, I George, he comes in and takes part in our Hall of Fame committee.
Okay.
That I was talking about earlier. So he comes in his. So it's funny whenever we're talking about modern day players, it's great to get his perspective on the inside. When he weighs in on, like you'll say like Matt Light as opposed to like Leon Gray. He has
that perspective.
Yeah, he's really invaluable.
Was he in the he was in the that documentary, right? Because he was giving stories. I saw him giving stories on
Dynasty.
Yeah, was he was in that, right? Was in
he was in the Dynasty.
Yeah.
I think he referred to Drew as like a wounded wildebeest or something.
yeah,
like trying to
he was like
get out of the pocket.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to him.
All right, ask your questions.
Well, we talk about music a little bit here. Like, what do you like? Who's your favorite band? Like, if you had to put it in, which on your playlist?
So like that's funny because I know everybody's sort of into like guys our age are like into like Led Zeppelin, or Pink Floyd.
I'm not that. He's that. I'm not that.
For me, it's Earth, Wind, and Fire. I love disco. In the late '70s, I was in Everett, and when we got a little bit older, in the '80s, we were going to the Palace.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And I loved it, and I loved dance music. I never looked down on disco like everybody else. Earth, Wind, and Fire would be the number one. Donna Summer,
they're awesome.
love.
Yeah,
Donna Summer was great.
I don't think people
she was
trash.
from Dorchester.
Yeah,
she was local.
Yeah.
No, but I don't think people trash Earth, Wind, and Fire.
No,
but when we were younger,
disco. When we were younger, like you were like in bed, like you would hide.
Yeah.
When we were younger, it wasn't really like cool to like disco when you were younger, but I learned to appreciate
Us Boxford kids didn't care about that.
Well, no, I'm just saying, my friends all worked at the Palace. I couldn't do the job they did. Like, they were all bouncers there. That was crazy at the Palace.
It was.
All
right, so I think as we wrap it up, do you have what advice do you have for if there's an aspiring kid that wants to get into sports media? What advice do you have for them?
So that's a great question, and that is something that I get talked to. I give a lot of talks about. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but I would just say, do this. If you want to get into broadcasting, if you want to get into podcasting, you want to get into writing, whatever, how do you do it without practicing?
Right.
So nowadays, the way that technology is set up, you guys just decided, hey, we like to talk about sports, and you set up your own podcast and you have your own show. Why can't you do that if you're a 15-year-old kid who I'm sure could run circles around me?
Right, us.
They wouldn't make all these mistakes
with the technology. So I would just say, get as many opportunities as you can to do it. And then when you get old enough, you have, first of all, an idea of which areas of the media that you like. Okay. Like for me, I always wanted to be a writer. My goal was to be a columnist for the Boston Globe someday, right? I just wanted to have my own column. I wanted people to care about what I thought.
Wow. Yeah.
That completely changed probably 10, 12 years into my career, and I just wanted to talk because talk radio was not a big thing when I was going to Boston University. EEI kind of started right as I was graduating from BU.
Eddie Andelman.
Yep.
Right.
There were some shows like that, but the talk radio, the way we know it now, didn't really exist when I was coming out. So I would just say, explore all the different facets of media. There's social media, there's the content that they put out now, the digital media, the digital content that they put out is so widespread and wide-reaching. You got to get, and the kids are already, you got to get well-versed on TikTok and Instagram and find out what resonates and how to resonate and go viral and all that stuff. And I would say just from a purely journalistic standpoint, just practice.
It's good advice.
Social media is big now.
So
Like,
we have, we never even had any of those channels. We had one person who was kind of like the social media content coordinator who would decide whether or not we would tweet out that we signed Stephon Diggs. We probably have 20 people now that
Unbelievable.
are involved in video production, editing, producing, whether they're doing the actual pushing of the content, where
That's
to push
amazing.
it. We have millions on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, every platform you can. Like it's
Imagine that.
multi-billions. Like
And you got-
multi-millions. It's unbelievable.
Like how often in a day, how often are you sending stuff out? Like 12 times a day?
So
more than that?
no, like you try, like the people that do it and they know about the algorithms
Yeah.
and things like this. Like I think it's like a less is more kind of thing. You don't want to inundate everybody.
Okay.
But there's a lot that goes into it. Like, we spent like the whole morning with Diggs the other day. Like we had some cameras on him when he arrived at the airport and drove to the stadium. We had cameras inside the
I watched that
office
whole thing today
with Robert Kraft. Did we put that out already?
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. He's walking.
Okay.
He gives Vrabel a hug.
Yeah.
He's with Robert. And
So there was probably like 4 people that were with him all day.
Yeah.
As opposed to like 20 years ago, we had one person. It's like, you think we should tweet that?
Is there like a special time where you want to release a story or
Okay. Absolutely.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like
No, but algorithms.
Like a
time
bad
of
story?
day. No, like if you're like if Diggs is coming out, like all right, we know what's happening the night before. Let's wait till X o'clock in the morning because that's a good time to release the story. Or,
So I'm a little surprised. When did we put it out? Do you know?
I saw that today.
I wonder if we put it out. I wonder if we got it out yesterday.
It might have been yesterday. I just was on
because I'm a
Instagram
little
and saw it.
surprised we would put it out on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's not usually when you would do it.
Yeah.
But it might have been yesterday. But yesterday was like last night. I wasn't.
Yep.
Playing, I was doing something.
But
So
it
I
sounds
saw
like
it
you
this
wouldn't
morning.
have thought it yesterday would have happened, or could it have happened yesterday?
That would have been a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
That was a
He was
lot.
He was live yesterday, right? Because
He did his press conference on
yesterday.
on Friday when he came in. That all happened in that day, and he did his press conference Friday afternoon.
I love it. I'm glad they have him.
Yeah.
I hope they get someone else.
They need someone over him.
Do
Yeah.
you think maybe somewhere like that, Brandon Ayuk's waiting in the wings on draft day, and they just swing a trade, and he comes here?
No, I'm not saying no. No,
Oh,
I have no idea.
Didn't they say there was something on Wikipedia where one of the receivers, it said that he was playing for the Patriots?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Zolak was talking about it.
Geez,
What's his
guys-
name?
guys are-
Seattle.
Tyler Lockett?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It said if you looked up, and then like anyone, I guess, can change Wikipedia, but
Yeah.
it said that he played for the
I wouldn't be stunned if Tyler Lockett signed.
Yeah, they seemed that they had interest in him.
They need someone at the top,
Yeah.
though. They need the big dog.
Yeah, but they said San Francisco has buyer's remorse on Ayuk. Like they overspent for him last year. He got hurt, and I don't know if they're having a fire sale over there or something's going on. But
Yeah, I mean, I think he's available. But I don't know.
would they
Okay.
get him? Would they? Or is it, now they have Diggs and maybe not? Is it still? Your
Oh, I
chance?
think if you get a chance to trade for Ayuk, yeah, I would do that.
That'd be good.
But the only thing there is that's two receivers coming off torn ACLs.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to think we can get one.
Who's healthy.
Healthy.
no tears. No
All right,
tears.
so we will. I mean,
Yeah, we could talk for
no.
hours,
People
yeah.
know where you are, but we will share everything, your world, on our show. We are so thankful that you came on the
Yeah,
show.
thank you
fun.
so much.
This was
Yeah.
fun.
Although I'm gonna, this is weird. I wanted to say this up front. I don't know if you guys heard this. Did you hear that Ed Sheeran bought a bar in Ipswich?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have something.
That's
He
like a
did.
pop-up pub. or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter told me
I
yesterday.
thought. I mean, right down the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or he's doing something there, right? Did he? I don't know if he bought it or he's performing there or he's doing something.
Yeah,
right?
I think he like was involved in creating something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, because I guess
I
somewhere.
guess he's from Ipswich, England.
or, yeah, exactly.
I'll
But
take it.
we'll take that. I don't know why I just threw that in there. But Paul, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to share everything. You guys should watch Paul. He's awesome. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you sticking around for the episode. And until next time.
We'll see you.